What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 80 of the Bros Talking Soccer podcast. My name is Dave Knittel, and I'm here with my brothers Christian and Matt to discuss stories from around the soccer world. We are joined by our friend Mark Lawson from At Game Day Tourist to discuss the World Cup. Mark, how you doing today?
I'm good, thanks, Dave. Summer's here, the World Cup's coming, and I'm excited to talk to you guys.
All right, yeah, we're excited to have you. Christian and Matt, how are you guys doing?
Just dandy, Dave.
Just dandy.
I'm doing great, Dave.
All right, cool. And I just realized that I asked you how you're doing, so we're going to have to redo that again. So my bad there. But anyone who's watching on YouTube, just wanted to break real quick and just say, feel free to say hello to us. We're going to be going through pretty detailed discussion on the World Cup, 2018 World Cup in Russia. Going to give our thoughts, and we'd love to hear from you as well. So feel free to interact with us. I got the chat function up in the background here and trying to manage my screen. And so feel free to say hello and all of that. And with that, we're going to jump right into the podcast. All right, we ready to go? Cool. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 80 of the Bros Talking Soccer podcast. My name is Dave Knittel, and I'm here with my brothers Christian and Matt to discuss stories from around the soccer world. We are joined by our friend Mark Lawson from Game Day Tourist. Mark, how you doing today?
Very good, thank you. Summer's here, World Cup's coming. I'm really excited to talk to you guys.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. Christian, how are you doing today?
I feel like I got deja vu, but I'm doing great, Dave.
That's great. That's great. Hilarious. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Dave. Thanks for asking.
All right, guys.
Hey, brothers.
Yes, yeah, you guys are together.
Done yet, so can you wait a second?
I'm sorry. You guys are together again. This is great, sharing headphones and. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you asking. Weather's fantastic out here. I'm starting to get excited about the World Cup. I'm starting to get over my sadness of the U.S. missing out and starting to get excited. So I'm excited for our discussion today. But Mark, real quick, before we get into the topics and everything we wanted to talk about, do you want to tell people where to find you on social media and a little bit about what you do at Game Day Tourist?
Yep, so you can find me on social media on Instagram and Twitter at Game Day Tourist. And my blog is at it's gamedaytourist.com. It focuses on exploring the world of sports with an emphasis on culture, travel, history, and the game day experience.
Awesome. And we will link to Mark's stuff. I know I read it a lot. And so awesome stuff. You should definitely go check that out. Christian, do you have our trivia question for this week?
I do have the trivia question this week. So there are 3 players going into this World Cup who have a chance of scoring in their 4th successive World Cup. Can you name them?
Okay.
Good. And David Villa was going to be one of them, but he's not going. So
okay. How many players? Refresh me. 3 or 4?
There are 3.
3. Okay. We will think on that and then give our guesses at the end of the podcast. Before we get into our World Cup discussion, wanted to give a quick plug for StadiumScene.tv. So they are a travel blog for people attending games in the United States. So if you're going to a stadium in the United States, you want to go to StadiumScene.tv. They have recommendations on where to park, bars, restaurants, and all of that. In addition to that, they partner with content creators like us, like Game Day Tourist. That's how we got connected with Mark, to offer content for sports fans. Again, it's not just specific to soccer. They offer all different kinds of sports content. So be sure to go check them out at stadiumscene.tv. They're a great partner. With that, let's get into our podcast now. Let's talk about the World Cup. So the first section we wanted to go through and talk about the group stage. And we're going to give quick kind of predictions on what we expect to happen. We're going to go start in Group A and just run through all the different groups. And we're going to go in kind of a round robin circle type thing. I don't know if round robin's the right way to say that. But let's starting with Group A. It's Russia, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Uruguay. Christian, do you have thoughts on what you expect to happen in Group A and the two teams coming out of that group?
Yes, I expect Uruguay to top that group pretty easily. I don't think they have much of a challenge there, and they have a pretty experienced squad in the last couple World Cups, so they'll come through as group winners, and they're going to face off with who's getting through with them? I'm going Egypt on this one. I think Russia doesn't get through as the host country, and it becomes a big deal for the fans. But it's still going to be a great World Cup.
Okay. All right. And no thoughts on Saudi Arabia?
Thanks for coming.
All right. Mark, your thoughts on what you expect to happen in Group A?
Yeah, I'm going to agree there. I think Uruguay's stars blow away the rest of that group. And then Mo Salah's legacy continues to grow as he inspires Egypt to pit Russia. And no thoughts on Saudi Arabia, unfortunately.
Okay. Yep. Matt, your thoughts on Group A?
I think Uruguay and Russia go through from this group. Egypt, I just don't know if they have the depth. I know they have Salah, but with his injury, I don't know how. I know it's just his shoulder, but I don't know, how he's
They also have a
come back.
45-year-old goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Saudi Arabia, pretty much my extent of Saudi Arabian soccer is just the skills and everything I see on Twitter from the Saudi league. All the players in FIFA, not all of them, but a bunch of them have 5-star skills. So hopefully it's just exciting soccer. So hopefully they surprise me a little bit.
Yeah, and so for me, I'm going to stick with Uruguay and Egypt. I believe Russia and Saudi Arabia are the two lowest ranked FIFA teams at the World Cup. I could be wrong about that.
Game.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the opening game. So I just don't think they have the talent to get through. And I think Uruguay has, those big stars, and they have a lot of youth players coming through that should make a big impact at this tournament. And Egypt, I just see them getting through at the expense of Russia. So with that, let's move on to Group B. That's Spain, Morocco, Portugal, and Iran. Mark, wanted to give your thoughts. Group B, what do you think is going to happen there?
Spain, definitely. They've just got too much class and too much experience to fall short in this group. And I think pretty much the same applies from Portugal as well. They'll go through.
Okay. Thoughts on Morocco or Iran at all?
I think Iran, the real win for them is getting to the tournament. Morocco, I just don't think they've got enough to get out of this group.
All right. Fair enough. Matt, thoughts on Group B?
I pretty much agree with everything Mark said. Spain and Portugal are obviously the two favorites in this group. Morocco, like I said, with Saudi Arabia, I think they do have a lot of creative, skillful players that I also hope to surprise me. But for full depth and defensive structure and everything, I don't know if they have it to compete at the World Cup.
Fair enough. So I actually have Spain going through in first, and I have Morocco coming through in second, Portugal third, and Iran fourth. Iran is sneaky good coming out of Asia, but I just don't think they have enough. Portugal is really old defensively. All their center backs are all well into their 30s, and I think that they just have the potential. I just don't think they're that good, and Morocco is sneaky good. They have a ton of creative talent and flair, and their coach is really committed to playing this attacking style of soccer. And so I think they're going to surprise people and sneak out of Group B in second place. But Spain, by far, the most talented and should go far. So that's who I got in first. Christian, your thoughts on Group B?
Yeah, they're very, very sneaky. I think that it is Spain going to go through as the group winners. I think they're too good. They're going to rebound from the last World Cup where they did not show up, and a lot of their young stars are going to cement their legacy. But Portugal and Morocco, I agree, are the two teams fighting it out. I think Morocco are a lot of people's pick to surprise people in the World Cup to get out of their group. But I think Portugal are just too strong in the end, and Ronaldo will get them through.
Yep. Stars perform on the biggest stage, so I can understand that.
Iran did really well in the Asian World Cup qualifying, really well. So I don't write them off as just a team that they're going to get blown out every game. I don't think they get through, and I think they come in last in the group. But I think they could steal a point here and there against either Spain or Portugal, and probably Portugal if I was to guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. This is one of the three strongest groups at the World Cup, in my opinion. And we'll talk about the other strongest groups in a little bit. Moving on to Group C. So that is France, Denmark, Peru, and Australia. Matt, your thoughts on Group C?
France, who I think is among the favorites of the tournament. I think they're going to handle this group pretty well. The next three teams, and that should definitely be interesting. I think a lot of all three of these teams are pretty evenly matched. I'm going to say Australia goes through as my bold prediction.
Wow.
Aaron Moy from Man City, now at Huddersfield. He's my guy, so gotta hope he wills Australia through this group.
All right. I have France, and then I have Denmark coming through in second, Peru, and then Australia. But again, I think France clearing away favorites. They have the most talented squad, and I just like Denmark's kind of European experience, big game experience to pull them through. But Peru and Australia are going to be tough opponents, and Peru just hasn't been there in a really long time, and so that can go one of two ways. They can either really outperform and be excited to be there, or they can underperform because they haven't been on the stage. So that's why I got them in third place. Christian, your thoughts on Group C?
that France are just too deep of a squad. They could have taken 3 different teams, and they all could have gotten through this group. They're just too good, and they're going to top this group without a problem, in my opinion. And I do also have Denmark going through. And Christian Eriksen is one of the most underrated midfielders in the world. He is so good, and he'll get them through. He can score goals from anywhere and create a chance from anywhere.
Great, Mark. I know you're a Tottenham fan, so I'm sure you probably agree with Christian, but your thoughts on Group C?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything I can add to France. They're going to breeze through this group, I think. And then the key is the first game, Peru-Denmark for me. The winner of that goes through in second place. I've got Denmark. I think Eriksen makes the difference and edges this one. Peru, Australia will be challengers, and I think this will be a low points group to get out of, but ultimately France and Denmark.
All right, cool. Moving on to Group D. That is Argentina, Croatia, Nigeria, and Iceland. This, again, is a underrated kind of group, in my opinion. Iceland has been punching above their weight for years now. Argentina is obviously a world power, but has just been they just don't have the talent. I think I heard yesterday that none of their starting keepers have any caps, or at least don't have any caps in big games. When I say starting keepers, I mean the 3 goalkeepers that they're bringing to the tournament. Croatia is good, and Nigeria is one of the strongest sides out of Africa. So I actually have Croatia coming through as first in this group, and then Argentina just barely sneaking out of the group. But I am very low on Argentina in this. Christian, your thoughts on Group D?
Are you sure they're not going to start with 3 keepers in that?
They could.
Sure?
No, I'm not sure. They could. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Well, technically in the rules, no, you can't. But I like the thought. I mean,
you
got to break rules to win sometimes.
All
right, so Argentina, I think, are just too good. Messi is a freak of nature, and he'll get them through this group as the winner. But I think it's going to be really difficult. I think every game is going to be decided by 1, maybe 2 goals if they're lucky for all the teams in this group. It doesn't matter. This is my group of death if I was to put one. And I say Croatia goes through with them. I think they're probably my dark horse, which I'll go into later. And they have a lot of midfield talent. And I would be shocked if they don't go through, to be honest.
Okay, so Argentina first, Croatia second?
Yes.
Okay, Mark, your thoughts on Group D?
Yeah, so I think Argentina wins this group with the philosophy of we'll score more goals than you will. I think they're pretty poor at the back and they will concede, but they're just too good going forward. I think Croatia miss out here. I think there's a bad spirit around Croatian soccer and the Croatian national team at the moment. There's a lot of political problems, and that's affecting the team and the media, so I think they go out. And I think Iceland, with their team spirit that's come about from the last couple of years, take the second place.
That would be awesome to see. Matt, your thoughts on Group D?
I think Croatia is going to top the group, actually. I think, like you guys said, their midfield's incredible. They have some attacking power as well with Mandzukic, and they have some forwards and Perisic, right?
I believe so,
yeah. Yep. Perisic is up front, too. I think those 2 are extremely talented players, especially when they play for their national team. I think they do really well. I think they go through in front, and then I think Iceland's going to come in second in the group. I'm not big on Argentina. Like, when I saw their squad, I was like, it just kind of threw me off because of you kind of forget when you have Messi, Dybala coming up, and players like Aguero, Higuain. So their front, their attacking power, nobody in the world, they could be the best in the world at that. But when I saw their whole roster, it was like, are they seriously bringing all these guys to the World Cup?
I respect that. I mean, I've been talking about that for a little while now, and I wanted to pick them to go out in the group stage, but Messi's just too good for me to have him go out in the group stage. I think he can carry them, but I respect that opinion and can see that legitimately happening. Let's move on to Group E here, and that is Brazil, Serbia, Switzerland, and Costa Rica. Christian, your thoughts on Group E?
Brazil go through, no question about it. I could see them winning all 3 of these games. I think they're one of the favorites to win, and they're going to show it in the group stage. I can't see anyone really challenging them of those other teams. My other pick coming out of this group is a little more difficult. Costa Rica surprised a lot of people in the last World Cup, but I think people are ready for them now, so it won't happen again. I think Serbia have that mix of experience and talent, but I don't think that they are going to get through. I think Switzerland are just too talented in the end, and they're going to surprise people the way they did in 2010, where they beat Spain in the opening match.
All right. Mark, your thoughts on Group E?
I think Brazil, no questions asked. But then the rest of it is quite tough. I think Costa Rica, there's a history of teams performing well in one tournament and then not so well in their second tournament they qualify for. So I think we'll see them finish bottom of the group. And I'm going to go with Serbia just to tip Switzerland. I believe Serbia will want it more.
All right. Matt, your thoughts?
I think Brazil's going to top the group. They seem like they got their stuff together this World Cup. So I really like them for going as far as you can pretty much imagine in this tournament.
The final.
Yeah.
Oh, just as
all
far as
7
you
games.
Possibly.
All 7 games. And I think Switzerland's going to come out in second. I know Serbia's got that mix of, why am I blanking on the experience? Yeah. All right, they got the mix of experience and talent, but I think Switzerland also does with also some youth coming up with Switzerland. So I think Switzerland's going to
be a Shack attack.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is Xhaka okay? I know he got hurt the other day. Did anybody see any injury reports? Is he okay?
I honestly did not see that.
I didn't see it.
No.
Okay. Well, hopefully he's okay. For me, I agree with what Mark said. Brazil, clear favorites. Costa Rica, I think people have kind of found them out. They're also a little bit older, so I think that they finish bottom. And I have Serbia coming through in second place, a mixture of experience and just they are supremely talented, especially in the middle of the pitch. So that's who I have. Group F, that is Germany, Mexico, South Korea, and Sweden. Mark, who do you have coming through in this group?
So I think Mexico comes through this just because they always do. It wouldn't be a World Cup if Mexico didn't make the last 16. I really wanted to find a way that Germany go out of this just to fit the narrative of the champions curse. This is nothing to do with me being British or English, sorry. But when I look at what the South Korean and the Swedish media have said, even they're not hopeful of their team getting anywhere. I think the South Korean media said we don't have good players in this team this time. So Germany go through just because the other two teams are sort of weak in this group.
Okay, so do you have Germany coming through in second place, or did you just kind of say it that way?
Yeah, I just said I think Germany first, Mexico second.
Okay. All right, Matt, your thoughts on this group?
I think Germany's going to come in first in this group, and I actually think Sweden's going to come in second. I'm a big fan of Sweden, like everything they've done in recent years with their youth, how they performed at the national stage throughout Europe and the World Cups. So I'm a big fan of Sweden. Mexico, I don't know how they'll adapt to the Russian weather. I know it's summer, but it's I feel like Sweden's just going to have the advantage playing in Russia.
Okay. Mexico does have a lot of players based in Europe, but you don't think that'll infect them?
Infect them?
Infect them. Yeah. Do you think it'll infect them?
I don't think it's going to be too bad.
All right, fair enough. I have Germany coming through in first. You can't really pick against them. And then I have Mexico coming through in second. Similar to Sweden, Mexico has had a ton of youth success. They just won the Gold Cup fairly recently. Nope, they just won a gold medal at the Olympics fairly recently. And so I think this is the tournament where they get through. I wanted to pick them to go far, but as we'll talk about in our next sections, them coming through in second most likely means they'll meet up with Brazil. But I have Germany coming through in first, Mexico second, Sweden third, and then South Korea fourth. Christian, your thoughts on Group F?
Germany are the only other team outside of France that have that depth that could take multiple teams and make it to probably the semifinals, at least the quarterfinals. So I think they cruise through this group again. Cruise. I think that I want to give some love to CONCACAF here, but I hate it. I think Mexico does get through, and it's going to be down to that game, I think, against Sweden. It's whoever wins that one takes it all, and South Korea, no offense, just can't do it this time around. They've had talented players over the years. They make a lot of World Cups, but I don't think that they're ready for this group.
All right. Yeah, I thought this might be the toughest group, but I think it's between, D, F, and I think we said B. Was that the other one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think those are the three toughest groups. Moving on to Group G, this is England, Belgium, Tunisia, and Panama. Matt, your thoughts on this group?
I think Belgium and England are far superior in this group. I think they should be able to get through. not gonna say no problem, but they should definitely be able to get through. It's the World Cup. All games are kind of going to be close, but I think Belgium's, their star power, and England's just kind of experience and being able to play together. I think that's just going to get them through by that alone.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think Panama might be the worst team at this World Cup. This is their debut World Cup, but they are very old, and I just think that they're happy to be here, and they may have a very poor performance at this World Cup. And I just don't see Tunisia being able to get through ahead of England and Belgium. I have England coming through in first as somewhat of a surprise, and Belgium coming through in second. I really like this England team, and so that's what I have going on. Christian, your thoughts on Group G?
Tunisia are the first team to win from Africa in a World Cup, as we learned last week.
Yes, we did.
And I think that they're going to come in last in this group. I no offense, guys. I just think that they're just not going to be strong enough, and I think Panama's age might get them a win in that game. But just from their experience in playing and going through CONCACAF, but I would be shocked if either of those two teams finished in the top two. I can't see them stealing points off of either England or Belgium. I am going England win this group, which I hope that they don't let me down again. But it's England. And I'm very excited about both of the team squads. I think they're very exciting. Got young talent and people who've been there before. It's going to be interesting, but I think there's been a lot of rotation in England, so maybe they don't have that same what the F are you doing factor this time around.
Okay. Mark, your thoughts on this group? I know you're an England fan, so feel free to expand on kind of the English team for us.
Yeah, no, I agree with the point Christian just made. I think this is a new look team. I like it. It's got a new mentality, I think, to what we had before. And despite what the inexperience on the international stage, I think we'll probably see a professional performance from them. I don't know if they're good enough to beat Belgium, so I've got them second in this group. I've got Belgium as first on that note because I just think their star power takes them through and gets them the victory against England. Panama are the big unknown for European audiences, I think, based on what you guys have just said. Probably not too much of a threat. And then Tunisia, I think they're struggling with injuries, so they don't get out of this group.
All right, fair enough. And that brings us to Group H, which is Colombia, Poland, Japan, and Senegal. I have Colombia coming through in first and Poland coming through in second. Japan and Senegal miss out. I just think the talent of Colombia and Poland are going to pull them through. Lewandowski, one of the best strikers in the world for Poland. They have a lot of other talented players, and Colombia with James Rodriguez, and they did fairly well in South American qualifying. Yes, it was touch and go, but anybody coming through South American qualifying, I think that they have earned that. So that's my Group H. Christian, your thoughts on Group H?
I think Colombia win as well, and I think Sadio Mane gets them out of this group. I love that guy, and he performed in the Champions League final, was the only one who did for Liverpool, and I think he gets his African team, and they're going to be, the only African team, I think, that I picked to go through, and they'll be in the round of 16.
All right, Mark, your thoughts?
I've got Colombia winning this group. I think they've got too many emerging stars not to win it. And then I think Poland's tournament experience takes them past Senegal for the second place in this one.
All right, Matt, you want to bring us home here? Group H?
I think Colombia and Poland go through. Colombia in first and Poland in second. Like you guys said, Colombia, their star power. I want to see James perform again at the World Cup, especially how he burst on the scene last World Cup. And yeah, he had a great year at Bayern, so hopefully he kind of after the last World Cup up until this year, he kind of petered out a little bit, but hopefully he gets his star power back again.
His groove back, some might say.
Yeah.
All right. So real quick before we end, anything else you wanted to add, Christian, on the group stage?
I can't wait for that England-Belgium game to round off the entire group stage. Last day, it's going to be awesome to watch those two go head-to-head for that first spot.
Mark, anything you wanted to add on the group stage?
No, I'm just looking forward to watching 3-4 soccer games a day.
Yeah, me too. Matt, your thoughts?
I'm just kind of excited to see how teams from that you don't necessarily follow too closely from a lot of these other continents, see how they perform against the European teams.
Me too, and I am just excited to watch a whole lot of soccer this next month. So that brings us to the end of our first segment, rapid fire there, and we're gonna move on to our second segment where we're gonna discuss, favorites to win the tournament, dark horses, and so on and so forth. Stick with us. Talk to you soon. All right, I thought that went pretty well. It was about 20 minutes or so.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. Next one. So yeah, like I said, favorites to win the tournament, dark horses to make a splash, but maybe not win, and then ultimately let's pick a winner. Let's try to maybe have more of a discussion. I know that one was just so much rapid fire. So as like people say kind of their picks, we can kind of respond to that. Since Mark's the guest, I'll let him go first on favorites to win, and then we can kind of respond to that. Does that work?
Wrong.
All right, cool. Welcome back, everyone, to our second segment. Now that we're done with the group stage, let's talk about knockout rounds and specifically favorites to win the tournament. So, Mark, wanted to get your thoughts first. Who do you think are the favorites to win this tournament? It doesn't have to be one team yet. I'm not going to ask you to pick yet, but just maybe some countries who you think can win the tournament.
I'm going to go all out and be bold and pick one team, and that one team is Brazil. They've been waiting 4 years to put the hurt and disappointment of the last World Cup behind them, and I think they are really, really ready for this this competition. They're a more rounded team than they were 4 years ago. They're far less reliant on Neymar. They've got players that can contribute from every position, and they're older, wiser, and more experienced than the last tournament.
Does the Neymar injury and his return, does that throw any of their chemistry out of whack for you, or no? Do you not see that as an issue?
I don't think so. I think this team is capable of performing without Neymar. Obviously, he makes a big difference to the team, but I think they'll get along just fine however this happens. All
right, fair enough. Christian, your thoughts on favorites to win the tournament?
I'm not going to give one. I'm going to give a couple. I think Germany are the favorites if I had to pick one, but okay. I am not going to. I think they have the deepest squad and just deepest talent pool to pull from. The Bundesliga, they've got players all over the world that are just amazing. I think France are equal to them, maybe in terms of that squad depth. But I think Germany's starting 11 might just nick them for me, and the experience of 4 years ago still. And Jurgen Löw always finds a way to perform. I know that they always make the semifinal at least, so it'll be interesting to see how they do this time around. Brazil, obviously, their starting 11 is freakish, and they're so talented, but if one player goes down for them, I can honestly see them having an issue. I don't think that they have the full depth of squad. And surprise pick here, I think Spain are also one of the favorites this time around. I think the disappointment of 4 years ago is going to just be sitting inside of them and burning, and they're going to be back on the stage getting pretty far this tournament.
Also, De Gea being there and being at the top of his game, I think, makes Spain a favorite. So I actually have the same 4 favorites. But Matt, do you have thoughts on who the favorites are?
I think this is Brazil's World Cup to lose. I think they are the best team. Neymar, what happened last World Cup with the Germany game, Neymar wasn't playing, and that pretty much stole the headlines. But Thiago Silva was out too, and that was before they kind of had center backs that could fill in and kind of replace what he meant to them 4 years ago. Now I think they have very strong defenders in even their backups. I think are very good defenders. I know their outside backs are getting up there in age, but I just think their attacking power and adding Gabriel Jesus as their striker, Coutinho kind of breaking onto the scene. I think they just have so much star power that it's kind of their tournament to lose.
Did you mean Firmino when you said striker? Because I'm confused.
Yeah.
Who's their outside back? So I know Marcelo, but who's the right back with Alves being injured?
Oh yeah, it's kind of. I put that together halfway through saying it.
Danilo.
Danilo.
Yeah.
I can't believe they took him. Every time he steps on the field for Man City, I think he's our worst player. But hopefully they're not starting Danilo. But they took what's his name?
From where?
The right back. It was like the big celebration that was all over Twitter.
I think he
from
only
the Brazilian league.
Exactly. Yeah, he plays in the Brazilian league. So that might be a weak area for them. But,
Yeah.
I think I'm in agreement. Like I already said, I mean, I agree with Christian. The 4 clear favorites are Spain, France, Brazil, and Germany. Now let's talk about dark horses, though. So teams that, aren't the clear favorites, but could go on to potentially win this tournament. Christian, any thoughts there on who could potentially win that isn't one of the favorites?
It's tough for me to pick someone who could win. I guess Argentina technically is one of those. People kind of are writing them off already, but they're someone who have been in the final of every tournament they've been in for the last couple of years. So I don't know if you can call them a dark horse, but they're a team that people don't expect to win. So
Yeah, I think you can call them a dark horse.
Okay, well then they're a dark horse.
Okay.
I think another team is Croatia. I think that they're undervalued. I really do, and I think that they can go pretty far. I know that Mark was saying they got a lot of political stuff going on, but I think they have the key players to make it pretty far in the tournament. And
All right.
Colombia is another one that I think that they have the experience from a couple of years ago. They went out to Brazil in overtime, and they have the same players pretty much all coming back, and it'll be interesting to see how they can compete.
Matt, your thoughts on dark horses to potentially win the tournament?
I think Uruguay and Poland are my 2 dark horses. I love the star power up front for both those teams, and if you get a culture to kind of just defend their asses off and let the stars kind of just do the work up front, I think that's a good recipe for success in a tournament.
Interesting. Mark, your thoughts on dark horses to potentially win?
I've got Belgium. I think they've got a squad packed full of talent, but maybe they lack the big game experience of some of the other nations. But if everything goes right, I think they could go a long way and possibly win it. Obviously, they've been to the last World Cup, so they'll now have some experience from that. But I am not convinced about Martinez. So if they do win it, it will be in spite of him.
Yeah, and that is my biggest thing with Belgium too. So my 3 dark horses to win, I actually have England as a dark horse, Uruguay, and Belgium. England has a ton of talented players, and like we talked about in our previous segment, they don't have that stench of like previous kind of failures and just all that pressure. They seem to be a little bit more loose, and I think they could, potentially go very far in this tournament and potentially win. Uruguay, I kind of along the lines of what Matt was talking about with kind of role players defending and letting the star players do their thing. I think that they have a recipe on that front, and they have some of the best strikers in the world. And then Belgium, like Mark was talking about, just how supremely talented they are. Yes, they haven't performed on the biggest stage yet, but they really have the potential with the players. But the manager is kind of that really kind of unknown for me. So those were my dark horses to potentially win. Last thing we wanted to, well, not last thing, but dark horses to potentially maybe go far, but not win the tournament. So just kind of make some noise, but teams that you aren't necessarily expecting to maybe reach a quarterfinals or even a semifinals. Matt, your thoughts there on any teams that could potentially make some noise?
Sweden for me. People pretty much guaranteed Italy was going to win the playoff and everything, and even winning that, again, without Ibra having that star power, I think people would just kind of write them off. Because they don't have necessarily the people that get all the headlines. They're not a team that is super exciting, but I think they have the capability of going and winning a knockout game or 2.
Interesting. Mark, your thoughts on dark horses to make some noise?
Yeah, I've got Denmark. We'll touch more on it in the next section, but I think they've got quite a good group of leaders within that team that are playing, maybe not at the top clubs, but at clubs at high levels in the top European leagues. So I think they could cause a few surprises for a few people.
Christian, thoughts on dark horses to make some noise?
I also have Denmark. I think that they have a squad that can cause a lot of people headaches, and it'll be interesting to see how far they can go. Another one would be Egypt. I think Mo Salah is really talented, and if he comes back healthy at the end of the group stage, even if it's second, third game, and they have a chance to go through, he is that good that he can win a game by himself if they could just defend. And it'll be interesting to see how they could do. What?
Not really by himself if they have to defend.
Well, I mean, he could win a game by scoring a goal by himself.
No, I know what he meant.
And I'm going to go with Senegal as well because Sadio Mane is a great player, and he can win a game by himself as well.
Nice. So my dark horse is to make a splash, but not necessarily go on and win are Mexico, Morocco, and Croatia. We've already kind of touched on a lot of them. I think Mexico has a really talented squad with a ton of experience, and I think this might be the year they break their curse of getting knocked out in the round of 16. But most likely they're going to come up against Brazil in that knockout round, first knockout round match. So I don't know if they will get through, but they could really give Brazil a run for their money. I've already talked about Morocco. I think they're supremely talented and kind of underrated, and they could really surprise people. And Croatia, I think they have just a really strong squad in the midfield and some attacking talent, and so and even defending. So I think they could make a run, but not necessarily win the tournament. Let's end it here with giving our predictions for who we think is going to win. Mark, I think we already got yours, but anything else to add about Brazil?
No, nothing about Brazil. Just a point on Germany, though. I think they may underwhelm. I think they're looking a little bit complacent, especially in the last couple of friendlies. So I think that may be a surprise of the tournament.
I like that. Christian, thoughts on who's going to win?
I am actually going with England. I picked them in my prediction, and it's going to surprise the entire world.
Wow, that would be quite the story. Matt, your thoughts on who's going to win?
Yeah, I think it's Brazil. And like what I was saying earlier, even like the midfield, the players, like I said, like Coutinho is not the same for years. Even a player like Fernandinho, Casemiro, these are guys playing under like the best coaches in the world. So I think they kind of understand more about the game now, and they're complete.
Yeah, and I really struggle with this, but I have Belgium winning. I have France, Belgium as my final, and just with Martinez as the coach of Belgium, I don't have a ton of confidence in that pick. I think they have the players, and if they had a better coach or a more high-profile coach, I'd feel better about that pick. But I'm going with Belgium against kind of my head, more with my gut and seeing what can happen. But I also think, none of us really talked about France too much, but I think that they make the final and could end up winning as well. So before we close here, Christian, anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I really, really hope Messi wins it just so that everybody can shut up. But I don't think that he's going to, which is unfortunate.
Mark, anything else you wanted to add?
No, I just hope to see England go far and get some experience, because I think they'll be looking good for the next World Cup.
Matt, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, so Portugal won the Euro and still have Ronaldo, and nobody has mentioned that in this podcast.
That's because no one understands how they won it. They're not good.
Yeah, they didn't necessarily pass the eye test when they won the Euro, but Matt, that's a really valid point.
They came in third in the group. They wouldn't have even gotten through in the last one.
They won.
They did. Yeah, they won. And so that's a really valid point that, none of us are really talking about them. And they still have one of the two best players in the world, arguably. And, they have talent and experience. So I don't necessarily see it. Like I said, I have them going out in the group stage. But, I mean, that's a really valid point there.
Hey, thanks.
You're welcome. All right, that brings us to the end of our second segment. You're going to hear a little bit more music, and then we'll close in our third segment talking about some players to look out for and just kind of generally the World Cup being in Russia. So we'll talk to you soon. All right, good stuff. I think it's just going fantastic, guys. How's everybody feeling?
Ever felt better, ever.
All right, cool. Last section, we'll talk about players to look out for, and then effects of the World Cup being in Russia. Any questions? Any concerns? No. Okay.
No. About what?
All right, cool.
Oh, good.
All right, good. Who have I gone to first? Should I go to Matt first now? I think we've gone Christian first, then Mark, and now so Matt, you're first for players. Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone, to our third and final segment. All right, we've talked about what's going to happen in the tournament from a team perspective. Now let's talk about some players to look out for. Matt, who are your players to watch out for at this tournament? Maybe breakout players, maybe some star players. What do you think?
I think Sadio Mane is somebody that's going to surprise a lot of people because he had an incredible year last season, not this past one, the year before. And then with Salah coming on and Firmino both playing like so well, he kind of became like that third option in the attack. So I think like him as the star guy at his team, he's really going to surprise people and show like how good he still is. So I think he's going to really surprise a lot of people around the world. Hopefully he gets a couple goals in the group stage and keeps Senegal moving, but I'm not sure if they have it. Best player in the world, Marcelo. I think he's just like, I just can't wait to watch him in the World Cup and just the way he plays. He kind of creates an attack from the left back position unlike any other player. So I think that's just such a great thing to watch and such a great option for a team like Brazil who always attack. So I think that's a player to watch out for.
Yeah, and before you move on the Marcelo front, if you haven't read the article in the Players Tribune from Marcelo, you should go check that out. We'll link to it in our podcast show notes. It's kind of like a first person story of just kind of his life and how he's gotten to where he is, and you should definitely go read that. But sorry to interrupt, Matt. Continue.
Yeah, and another star player that needs to kind of prove himself is Pogba from France, a team that should be competing to win this tournament, and him kind of being. I'm not saying he's their best player, but he's their star. He has to shine at the biggest stage. So I think he needs to show people what he's still capable of, even with his kind of underwhelming season at United.
Good shouts. Mark, thoughts on some players to watch out for?
Yeah, so I've got Christian Eriksen. I think the Danes have been waiting a long time for him to break out on the international stage. He's been touted as a future star since he was about 15 years old. And I think this is his chance to prove it now. He's certainly starting to step up to those expectations, and he scored more than half the qualifying goals for Denmark. And in the playoff against the Republic of Ireland, he scored a hat-trick, and even the Irish press were touting what a superstar he is. So I think he's going to have a breakout tournament. From the other side of things, I think that Messi has a big tournament this year. I think this is the time when he proves he really is the greatest of all time. I think maybe this is going to be his last tournament. So I think he goes out with a bang.
Great shouts. Christian, thoughts on players to watch out for?
So I'm going to start by saying the players who have been injured, which are Neymar, Salah, and Neuer, see how they play when they come back from their injuries. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they can perform when they haven't been playing at the highest level, especially Neuer and Neymar.
Yeah, do we know what Neuer's status is? Like, is he the starter? Is he fully back? Did he make the roster?
I thought I saw that he did make the roster and that he is going to play in their last friendly.
He played in the scrimmage, like the team scrimmage. Remember I sent you the...
Yeah, no, I know that. But last I saw was that Lowe was still deciding on if it made sense to take him to the tournament.
Did you call him Lowe?
Lowe? Love? What is it? Love?
Love. Yeah.
Love. All right. Pronunciation police. Thank you for that.
All right. But outside of those three... I'm going with Pogba. Matt mentioned I think he has to have a big tournament this time around. I agree with Messi needs to have a big tournament because he needs to prove that he is the all-time greatest. Even if they don't win it, for him to carry them far would be huge for his legacy. And I'm interested to see how Iniesta does in his last tournament as well. We're all going to miss watching him play week in, week out for Barcelona and Spain. But he's heading away, and I also had Eriksen written down, but I think he covered it pretty well.
All right. So the players I had is Kylian Mbappe. I mean, he broke out on the Champions League stage a couple of years ago, and I think this is where he really breaks out for France. Like I said, I expect them to make the final and him to be a key contributor for them. I mean, most of the soccer world kind of is aware of him, but this may be when like the general world kind of views him as a star. Another player I have is Isco, kind of breaking out for Spain. I expect Spain to reach the semifinals of the tournament, and I think Isco is going to be really influential and critical for them. Him taking over is kind of a creative force for them as someone who's going to be stepping up and replacing some of their old guard that's going to be kind of being phased out. And then I might be the biggest Morocco fan because I have another Morocco. I'm going to give another Morocco shout out here. Hakim Ziyech, who plays for Ajax. I think he's a 24, 25-year-old, really creative attacking player. And he's someone who not a lot of people know, but anyone who I've listened to talk about on a podcast or read about, they've been highlighting him as kind of this breakout player to watch out for, and he might be getting a move to a big club this summer after a good performance at the World Cup. So riding that Morocco train. So he's a player that I want to, I'm going to be looking out for, and you should as well. Anything else we wanted to talk about on player front, Matt?
No, I think we covered all the people I wanted. I got De Bruyne playing for Belgium. He's played extremely well at the national level, and I hope people like he like cements himself as like the star player for Belgium. Even though with Hazard there, I think De Bruyne's really going to be what makes him, succeed.
All right, Mark. Any other players you wanted to mention or any topics?
No, just a note that Neuer played in Germany's defeat to Austria last night.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thank you. And Christian, any other thought?
Yeah, I'll throw out Kane and Sterling. We'll see if they can lead the England front line and if they can bang in some goals, which everyone's kind of expecting them to do. And if Cavani and Suarez can lead Uruguay the way that Diego Forlan did in 2010.
Yeah, I mean, you got England winning the tournament, so I think you need Sterling and Kane to have a good tournament, right?
Well, I mean, we all know Sterling's not going to score, but Kane could score a couple goals.
Oh, man, you need to let it go, buddy. Just let it go.
No.
All right.
He's probably going to leave City, too.
Yeah. Okay, so last topic we wanted to cover in this World Cup kind of segment. So the World Cup is in Russia, and there's a lot of political and sort of, I don't know, cultural issues that come along with that. Mark, let's get your thoughts first, being that European and you may have a different perspective on all of this. What do you think about the World Cup being in Russia, maybe from a fan perspective, maybe just from a generic coverage perspective? I don't know. Do you have thoughts?
So I've been to Russia, and there's definitely a different expectation of how your friendliness or how friendly you should be to strangers. But I travelled to Ukraine in 2012 for the Euros, and there was a hell of a lot of Russian fans there, and they were just there to enjoy the game, enjoy the football. They wanted to meet people and have a good time. Obviously, there's the hooligan element, but I think that is isolated and a very, very small number of people. I think that will be controlled. Ultimately, I think most of the Russian population want to represent their country in a good light. I think we may see some isolated incidents, unfortunately, with maybe racism and things like that, but mostly it will go off without serious consequences.
So is this a case of a small group and the media kind of blowing something up and making it bigger than what the reality might be?
Well, I think if we look at Euro 2016 and the instance with the hooligans, well, was that 50 people, maybe 200 at most? That's not many people to paint an entire nation with. So it's I think the people who are causing the trouble will be known to the police. They'll be watched, and I think that they'll be prevented from causing any disturbances.
All right, yeah, and we certainly hope so. I know from our outside perspective, because obviously we're not as close to the situation. I think the media, it's a lot easier to cover these ridiculous kind of hooligan stories. It's easy to get clicks, and it's easy to write a story about that. And so I think from our perspective, we kind of generally the majority of the stories are kind of about that. And so it's nice to hear that that's not, it's not just utter chaos and it's not going to be likely terrible. And a lot of fans are going to enjoy it. So that's somewhat comforting to hear. And so really appreciate that perspective. Christian, your thoughts on the World Cup being in Russia?
I agree with Mark that the hooliganism is going to be controlled. I don't think it's going to be a major issue, and there will be isolated events. But the racism I can see being an issue. I can see that happening. I mean, I think it could happen anywhere, though, so it has nothing to do with Russia. That's just kind of what happens when you bring a lot of people from around the world together in a tournament like this, and it's not acceptable, but it is something that we expect somewhat. I heard that travel from the stadium to and from the stadiums is going to be a little bit difficult. I was reading about this, and they have like limited train access and all this stuff about going from like hotels to stadiums. And I'm not sure how the logistics of that are going to go, but I know that is a concern. And my two biggest points, I would say, are VAR making its debut in a tournament like this is going to be very, very risky and dangerous, but I hope it goes off without a hitch. I hope all the calls are correct that it's used for, and it is used pretty much worldwide after this. It should be. And the other thing that I'm concerned about are the ticket prices. I know that they were saying they're low for Russian citizens around the stadiums, but I think I read that it's like over 20% of their monthly salary to get a ticket, even though they seem really inexpensive to us. Like they just don't make that much money over there to pay for them, and they're worried about a lot of empty seats, and that's like FIFA's biggest fear.
Interesting. All right. Good perspective there. Matt, your thoughts on the World Cup being in Russia?
Yeah, like the hooligans, I don't think there's going to be too much of a problem with that. It's the biggest stage of sports, the World Cup. So I think security is going to be kind of controlling that situation. There's going to be people from all around the world there. Security and safety is like a priority. So I think it should be handled very well. Like last World Cup was in Brazil. And I feel like if it went all right in Brazil, it's going to go all right in Russia. So I mean, there's going to be obviously isolated incidents, like Mark was saying. You can't control everybody perfectly. There's always going to be people that are doing something that isn't representative of the whole, population. So
maybe we should just put a chip in everyone's brain.
Yeah, that's what oh man, I wanted to make that joke, but he was still talking. I didn't want to interrupt him.
Yeah. So I don't think there's going to be like any like problems with racism or hooligans like attacking people from other countries or anything like that. I'm not worried about the whole thing in Russia.
You don't think there's going to be like tons of problems? Like there may be incidents. That's what you're saying. It's not just like okay, yeah.
And there's like the way the media might spin it to make it seem like it's like, oh, you can't go to Russia. They'll beat you and say racist things towards you.
Well, yeah, and that's the vibe that a lot of times the media is cultivating, at least from what we see in this country. And so that gets into what Christian was talking about. I worry about fans filling the stadiums because so much of soccer and the atmosphere that comes through, especially when you're watching at home, is the in-stadium atmosphere. And, whether it's the sounds from the stands and the players, you can feel it. You can feel when the players are feeling what's going on in the stands and they're running harder or they're doing, more things. And if there's kind of a dead atmosphere, it's going to, take a little bit away. So I just worry about that happening, both from international fans traveling to Russia because they're worried about the things we've talked about, even though there may not be, legit concerns there, and also domestic fans not being able to afford going to the stadium. So that's kind of my biggest fear about this. About this World Cup kind of going on in Russia. Mark, anything else you wanted to add in closing about the World Cup or, anything we talked about?
I think there's always concerns before any major tournament or sporting event, but they always seem to be well managed and go off as well as possible. So I think we'll see that again here. And I just want to know if you guys are going to be truly neutrals for this World Cup or have you got any particular teams you're rooting for?
Matt, you want to give your thoughts?
Well, I'm definitely not neutral. I have just like based from knowing the players from like club experiences, you kind of develop love or hatred towards certain players. I'm going to be rooting for obviously like the Man City players. I like De Bruyne, I like Belgium, and I like Germany. Just like our ancestry is linked to Germany, so kind of rooting for them.
Christian?
All right, in order, I have 3 teams that I'm rooting for. I'm actually rooting for England most, obviously, because I picked them to win, and I really like their players that play for Liverpool, so I want them to do well. I want Messi to win, so Argentina are my second choice, and then Germany, just because our heritage. I'd love to see them go back-to-back.
Yeah, and so I think I don't have rooting interest, to be perfectly honest. This is the first World Cup where, I have teams that I pull for. I picked Belgium to win, so I guess I'm pulling for them. But if France wins, I'd be all right with that. I have them going to the final. Our heritage is German, so there's that. Honestly, I don't really have a team. And so that's why I'm really excited about this World Cup, because I really am just going to kind of sit back and enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to that. We did have one listener question from @UnderdogSP, and we already kind of touched on that, but let's just remind listeners, his question was 2 surprises of the group stage: surprise team in and surprise team out. His were Egypt in and England out in the group stage. Do we want to just remind people kind of who our group stage, surprise was? Christian, you want to give yours?
Sure. I think that the surprise team to go through
I can give mine while you're thinking. All right, my surprise team to go through, as I've hit on many times, is going to be Morocco, and going along with that is Portugal going out. They're coming from the same group, so that's my surprise team. Christian, do you have your thoughts?
Yeah, my surprise team going through, I have Senegal going through, and I think that's going to surprise a lot of people, and I think they're going to come up against England in that next round, so that'll be interesting. Mane against his Premier League counterparts out there. And the surprise team to go out, I'm going to say, did I pick one? I don't even think I have a surprise team going out. I feel like I kind of was very straightforward in all my picks. I don't know.
Okay. Mark, your thoughts?
Surprise team in is Iceland, and surprise team out is Croatia.
All right. Those were good ones. Matt, thoughts?
Yeah, so my surprise team in is Australia, which is the real big surprise one. And surprise out is Argentina in the group stage.
No, and I think that's a good shout. Christian, we're back to you.
I think Poland is my team. So I have Poland and Senegal kind of reverse of what a lot of people think it's going to be.
All right. Fair enough. Before we get into our couple other quick things I wanted to touch on. So I have a fantasy soccer website, simplified fantasy soccer, called Fan Futsal. I've been working on that for a number of years, and we have you select 5 teams instead of 8 to 11 individual players. Our scoring is simplified, so it's really easy to play. We're not doing anything specific for the World Cup. We weren't able to get something developed for that, but we have MLS going on throughout the summer, and obviously when the European leagues start back up, we have games for that. So FANFUTSAL.com. Please go check that out. Also, I have a YouTube channel called The Soccer Tavern, where we're making videos about the history, culture, and philosophy of the beautiful game. Right now, I'm releasing national team history videos for all of the World Cup teams, as well as a World Cup overview video that goes through a pretty comprehensive explanation of how teams qualified for the World Cup from each of the different confederations, and then how the World Cup finals tournament actually works. So I've been working really hard on those, and so if you go check them out, I'd love for you to check them out and let me know your thoughts on that.
Hardly working.
Yep, definitely. So that's The Soccer Tavern. We'll link to that in the show description. Real quick before we get out of here, a couple other things we wanted to mention. Zinedine Zidane left Real Madrid after winning basically everything. Mark, quick thoughts on that?
Smart move. The only way is down from here. I think he's a clever man. I don't know what job he'll be going to next, but I think he can have whatever job he likes. So he's made a good move there.
Christian, thoughts?
I wouldn't say he won everything. He won the Champions League 3 times in a row, and
the league.
He won the league 1 time.
So he won everything. What he won basically? He won the Club World Cup. He won everything there was to win.
Okay. Well, the way you said it made it sound like he won everything every year.
Okay.
So
thank you.
He did win everything.
That's not true, everybody. But he is a great manager. He was a fantastic player, and I think he's stepping away at the right time. I think that team is going downhill. They are very old now, and he made a smart move here.
Matt, thoughts?
Yeah, it's crazy. You just kind of woke up. What was that, a couple of days ago, and it was just like, what the hell just happened? He just kind of left. So I think it's going to be a kind of like a ripple effect at Madrid. I think Bale and Ronaldo are both going to leave this summer, and Zidane's gone. And yeah, like he won everything there is to win. So he was. I'm trying to get this picture up from ESPN. Oh yeah, here it is. It's like the headline: "We still don't know how good a manager Zidane is after he won everything in his first stint as a coach." So I thought, I just read that headline after he left, and I was just like, "What is ESPN talking about right now?"
It's still the same thing that I was talking about last week. We don't know how he's going to do in the transfer market when there's types of change. You don't know. He walked into a team that was already built.
Yeah, and so I think there's 2 sides of this coin. I think that he has proven that he can win, right? There's no debating that, but there is an element of he walked into this very talented team. He signed minimal amounts of players, and he rode them kind of during their prime, right? Their average age, I think the article we'll link to, I think was talking about their average starting age is about 29, and I think you always want to leave a year too early than a year too soon, right? And that's what show business and sports kind of say. If you're going to trade somebody, you trade them a year too early than a year too soon, right? And so it's kind of that same sort of concept. Am I saying that right?
Soon and early are the same.
Yes. Yeah.
My wife's laughing at me over here. Then a year too late. a year too soon versus a year too late. Thank you for clarifying that. But it's the same sort of rule that you kind of leave people wanting more and you leave them on a positive note versus like what we've seen with Wenger or what we've seen with other players kind of staying a year too long. Then you kind of not damage your legacy, but you just leave people with kind of a sour taste. And I think Zidane's making just an incredibly smart move for his personal sort of brand and reputation. So I think that's what it means. Anything else to add, Mark, on this or any other topics?
Nope, that's it from me.
All right. We'll recap. Christian, do you want to recap our trivia question?
Yeah, trivia question this week is there are 3 players going to the World Cup this year who can score in their 4th consecutive World Cup. Can you name those players?
Mark, since you're our guest, do you want to go first or do you want us to give our guesses?
I'll go with Iniesta. That guy that plays for Mexico that's really old that I can't remember his name.
Rafa?
And yeah, I think that's the one. And then
Rafa Marquez.
Somebody, Marcelo, we'll say.
Okay. Matt, thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to definitely go Iniesta. I'm trying to calculate. I think Messi, this is his 4th, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is Messi's 4th. And I think Ronaldo, I think he got 1. I think he scored in the last 3. He had 1, I think 2 of them. So I'm going to go those 3.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to go with Matt as well.
The answer is Tim Cahill, who you guys just forgot about. Rafa Marquez is also correct.
Oh, good stuff, Mark.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Messi
didn't score in that first one.
Wow. All right. Very good trivia question. Good call, Mark, on Rafa making.
David Villa would have been.
Yeah. Is this Rafa's 6th World Cup?
Yes.
That's insane. So like so we're U.S. fans, or at least the Knittel brothers are, and Rafa's been a thorn in the U.S. side for many years. But it's incredibly impressive that this dude is about to play in his 6th World Cup. So I just want to give
since I've been like alive.
Yeah. And he made his debut he was either 96 or 98. Because I was doing my research for my Soccer Tavern videos, and it's just insane. So shout out to Rafa because that's incredibly impressive. Before we get out of here, Mark, do you want to remind people where they can find you on social media and your website?
Yep, so I'm at Game Day Tourist on Instagram and Twitter, and the website is gamedaytourist.com.
All right. So definitely go check that out, and we will link to it in our show notes. And finally, so because of the World Cup, I am actually going to do a daily podcast and vlog, or not vlog, but a daily video about the World Cup, about an hour after matches end, on the, each day. So starting on the 14th and going every day that there are World Cup matches. It's probably going to be me talking to myself, but any listeners out there, if you want to come on and just talk with me about the World Cup, we'd love to have you on. So I'm not just talking to myself and just giving my thoughts. So anyone out there who's interested, feel free to shoot us a message or let us know. We'd love to have you on, and you guys can be there, and we'd love to have you. Christian.
So Brazil played Croatia this morning, and Neymar returned to score the opening goal, and Firmino scored the late goal to seal the game, just so you know, in a 2-0 win.
Okay.
I just want everyone to know Neymar returned.
Okay. Well, by the time this comes out, they probably will have already known that. So that's not like this isn't like a breaking news type of situation.
It is for right now.
That makes sense. Okay. Well, thank you for that. That's fantastic. So listeners, if you want to be involved come on, talk the World Cup, I'd love to have you on. So I'm not just talking to myself. So Christian, what's up?
They played at Anfield, which is the greatest stadium.
Okay. All right. So listeners, thank you for tuning in and listening to another podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed our World Cup preview, and we'll be back next week. We'll link to all of the stories we discussed here in our show notes, so be sure to go check them out. Also tweet them out from our Bros Talking Soccer Twitter handle, which is at BT Soccer Pod. If you want to get in contact with us, again, be on the podcast for the World Cup, shoot us an email, bros.talking.soccer@gmail.com, or send us a tweet. Be sure to go check out our website, brostalkingsoccerpodcast.com, and follow us on YouTube. So we do this thing live, and you can come hang out with us and interact with us while we record. Mark, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate talking with you, and we'll be pulling for England throughout the tournament, and hope to have you on again soon. Christian and Matt, thank you guys for being here, and we will talk to you all next week. See you, everybody. All right, cool. after editing, it'll be right around an hour, I think, maybe a little less. So I thought that went really well.
Oh God, you talk so much.
Okay. Anyone still watching on YouTube, thanks. We're going to cut the broadcast off on that lovely note.